In 1963, the Soviet Union supplied Egypt, Syria, and Iraq with a piece of hardware that terrified Western militaries, the Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-21. It flew at Mach 2, twice the speed of sound, and carried advanced missiles. Israel, looking at the rapidly arming states across its borders, knew its pilots would soon face hundreds of these jets without knowing a single thing about their tactical blind spots. Israeli Air Force Commander Ezer Weissman, seen in this photograph, delivered a blunt directive to his intelligence services. He didn't want blueprints or blurry photographs. He demanded a fully functional, intact MiG-21, brought straight to Israeli soil so his engineers could tear it apart and learn exactly how to shoot it down. The initial strategy to get one was simple: offer $1 million to an Arab pilot willing to defect. It was an outright disaster. A 1962 attempt in Cairo ended with an Egyptian pilot reporting the approach, leading to the hanging of the Mossad agent who made the offer. Subsequent attempts left 2 more Iraqi pilots dead, one shot in a Texas bar, another thrown from a speeding train in Germany. Throwing briefcases of cash at the problem was only resulting in dead assets. Israeli intelligence adjusted its parameters. The men who flew these elite jets lived closely monitored, highly privileged lives. Appealing to greed wasn't working. Instead of looking for pilots who wanted to get rich, Mossad started looking for pilots who were quietly, desperately unhappy. Acquiring the most classified piece of Cold War aviation required leaving behind traditional military tactics. To steal the machine, they had to isolate the human operating it, engineering a psychological trap from which defection looked like the logical escape. This image captures a busy Baghdad street in the 1960s. Beneath the everyday traffic, rigid social hierarchies were quietly operating. Munir Redfa lived in that world as an Assyrian Christian, representing a deeply marginalized minority. Despite being talented enough to become one of only 5 pilots cleared to fly Iraq's elite MiG-21s, his career was dead-ended. His commanders passed him over for promotions in favor of Muslim officers and deliberately underfilled his jet's fuel tanks out of pure suspicion. Redfa's isolation was compounded by a severe moral crisis. His commanders regularly ordered him to fly his elite fighter over northern Iraq to drop napalm on civilian Kurdish farming villages. He later admitted the guilt of burning innocent, persecuted communities alive followed him from the cockpit to his bed every night. Mossad placed an operative posing as a wealthy European tourist in Redfa's social circles. She went by the name Lisa Brat, and her approach was intensely patient. For weeks, she never brought up Israel, defection, or money. She simply sat across from him, remembered the names of his children, and offered the profound relief of being genuinely listened to. For a man accustomed to being distrusted by his own government, her empathy felt like a lifeline. The illusion of a spontaneous romance held until they took a vacation together to Greece. Sitting in a seaside bar, Lisa dropped her cover. An Israeli military intelligence officer stepped in, producing a forged passport with Redfa's face already inside. The offer was laid out: fly his jet to Israel, and he would receive $1 million, full citizenship, and a covert operation to extract his entire extended family from Iraq. The alternative to accepting the passport was entirely unspoken. Redfa knew his colleagues had been approached before, and he knew they ended up with bullets in their heads for refusing. The intelligence world calls this a choice between silver and lead. Cornered, he agreed to the flight. The most devastating tool used in this operation had nothing to do with traditional espionage seduction. The intelligence agency measured the exact depth of a man's moral exhaustion, waiting until the act of betraying his uniform felt like the only way he could save his own conscience. Extracting Redfa required an immense human cost from the people he was supposedly saving. His wife, Betty, thought she was taking their young children on a summer vacation to Paris. Instead, she arrived at a Mossad safe house where an unfamiliar Israeli officer informed her that her entire life in Iraq was over. Redfa hadn't found the courage to warn her. Terrified and holding 2 young children in a foreign city, she was coerced onto a flight to Tel Aviv. Back in Iraq, Redfa faced the logistical problem of his deliberately restricted fuel tanks. He knew the Iraqi ground crews held a deep resentment for the arrogant Soviet military advisors stationed at the base. Capitalizing on his friendly rapport with the mechanics, Redfa suggested they top off his tanks to the brim, entirely bypassing the Soviet authorization protocols, just to spite the Russians. On the morning of August 16, 1966, Redfa lifted off the tarmac. He immediately banked west, leaving his designated flight path. He reached for his radio dial, cut all communication, and ignored the frantic orders from his Iraqi commanders threatening to shoot him down, hurtling straight toward hostile borders at nearly the speed of sound. The flight nearly ended violently in the skies over Jordan. Jordanian radar operators tracked his unapproved entry and immediately contacted neighboring Syria. In a massive stroke of luck, the Syrians assumed it was their own pilot on a rogue training mission and told the Jordanians not to worry. By the time Hawker Hunter interceptors were scrambled to chase him, the MiG was flying too fast and too high to catch. Crossing into Israeli airspace, Redfa tuned his radio to a prearranged frequency and listened for a specific Arabic song. "Welcome, welcome." 2 Allied Dassault Mirage fighters intercepted him, flanking his wings and guiding him safely down to the concrete runway, as seen in this photograph of the silver escort plane parked at the Israeli base. A 3-year, multi-million-dollar international operation involving dozens of covert agents across 3 continents ultimately rested on the shaking hands of one terrified pilot choosing not to turn his aircraft around. Israeli test pilots spent the next year pushing the captured jet to its limits. They discovered the MiG-21's engine lagged heavily at low altitudes, and the cockpit design created a massive blind spot directly behind the pilot. In April 1967, Israeli fighters used that exact intelligence over the Golan Heights, destroying 6 Syrian MiGs without losing a single plane. As this grainy photograph captures, that tactical knowledge proved lethal, securing absolute air superiority during the 6-day war. The intelligence bounty crossed the Atlantic. In January 1968, the jet was crated and flown to Groom Lake, Nevada, Area 51. The U.S. military ran simulated dogfights against the MiG over 40 days. The insights derived from that program directly improved American kill ratios in the Vietnam War and served as the major catalyst for creating the Navy Fighter Weapons School, widely known as Top Gun. Loaning the aircraft came with a massive condition. In exchange for the MiG, the United States agreed to break a 2-decade arms embargo against Israel. As shown by these 2 camouflage jets flying in formation, America sold Israel a fleet of advanced F-4 Phantoms, instantly upgrading the backbone of the Israeli Air Force for an entire generation. The sheer cinematic scale of the heist cemented it into pop culture. The Israeli military designated their new prize 007, leaning into the espionage mythos. When Sean Connery, seen in this portrait, visited the country in 1967, the actor who played James Bond posed alongside the stolen Soviet fighter. But the man who executed the heist received no such glory. Redfa lived out his days in obscurity, running a petrol station, alongside a wife who never fully recovered from being lied to and ambushed. Back in Iraq, his defection triggered a retaliatory order that permanently banned Christian citizens from serving in the Air Force for the next 40 years. History remembers the theft of an unbeatable machine that reshaped Cold War battlefields. Yet the most critical weapon deployed in the entire operation was the quiet, calculated exploitation of a single pilot's loneliness.